Hello and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I want to do a little bit of reflecting on some things that I've noticed about being on YouTube, and more specifically, being a Black YouTuber. Long story short, there are some expectations that I feel are specific to my particular demographic when it comes to being on this platform. And so I'd like to take those expectations apart and talk about how they affect content, subscribers, and overall experience of the creators, of Black creators. But before I do that, I know that no matter what skin color you are, you want to make sure you're presenting your best self. And recently I've gotten back into doing a skincare routine after not doing it for a while, like not really putting a lot into it. And I've been using products from yours.
When it comes to me and skincare, I actually have a long history of struggling with my skin. This was my skin a mere 3 years ago, and it took me a long time of trial and error to figure out what would work best for me. So when I was approached by yours for a possible partnership, I knew that I was not going to be on board unless they were the kind of company that knew what they were talking about. And they did not disappoint. Your Skincare is a clean skincare brand that uses a personalization algorithm and selfie analysis to decode your skin health and needs based on your skin, lifestyle, and environment. Your skincare is clean, safe, and effective, and it works for your unique skin. It is a minimalist and sustainable skincare brand that reduces the hassle and removes the guesswork. When a customer decides to get a personalized skincare routine from yours, the first thing they'll do is go online and complete a skincare assessment. Then, they have the option of using a new selfie analysis feature where you can take a selfie and it's analyzed for different skin features. All of this data is used to give you your own personalized skincare system. One thing I especially love about yours is the packaging. Look at the beautiful box that my products came in. It features airless pumps to reduce product wastage and make recycling easy. All of the bottles are fully recyclable and reusable. I received the Day Serum, which is called Drop of Light, and it's designed to tackle pigmentation. It's packed with vitamin C, with a vitamin C brightening complex, and it lightens dark spots and blemishes, leaving you with fresh, radiant, and luminous looking skin. Next up is the Matte and Moist Moisturizer. This is going to be a moisturizer for you. If you struggle with oily skin like I do, this will definitely be a moisturizer that will help you. I think it can be a moisturizer for anyone, but definitely those of us with oily skin, because it's going to work to regulate sebum production. And I don't know if you know this, but when you're saying you have oily skin, what you're actually saying is you have an excess of sebum. It's something that your skin secretes, and that's that oily film that you see on your skin. And this moisturizer works to regulate that. It also tightens pores, and it protects and regenerates your skin cells. It has soothing properties and a lasting matte finish. And sometimes these long editing days will turn into long editing nights, and the next day I will definitely need a little pick-me-up. So I love the I Love You Eye Serum. It definitely gives me that perked up look around my eyes, and is super effective for making me look awake. So I love that. And those of us who deal with hyperpigmentation, we know that sunscreen is an absolute must. So I love the Sunny Side Up water-based broad spectrum SPF 30 sunscreen. What I love about this most is that it does not leave an oily film on my skin. So I wanted to show you guys, I went outside, and once again, I insist on wearing sweaters in this non-fall we're having in Texas, but whatever, it was so hot. But I went outside and I wanted to show you, I'm using the sunscreen. It is a mist, and so it comes out really light. But I use, just a couple sprays here on the back of my hand. It's like falling off. But anyway, and look at how I'm putting it in, and look at how there's like no film on my skin. So there's no like cakey effect. It just feels really light and non-irritating. And of course, there's no, like I said, there's no film left over. I filmed this all out of order, so you'll have to forgive me, but I could not close this out without showing my very favorite product, which are the Clean Slate exfoliating pads. As someone who deals with skin texture issues, these clean slate exfoliating pads are amazing. I love the easy to use technology here. I've never used an exfoliating pad before that has like these little pouches for my fingers to go in, and it clears blackheads and acne. It helps brighten dull skin, and it's packed with plant-based active ingredients. One of the things I really like about yours is that they blacklist over 1,400 ingredients to ensure only the safest ingredients are used on your skin. Yours is based in Switzerland, and their skin experts create each formulation using ingredients from the curated, ever-growing library of Swiss active ingredients. Clean, vegan, and sustainably sourced, they're backed by research and go through rigorous testing so you get the safest and most effective skincare. When you visit their website, they even have an ingredients library, so if you have something that you're used to using on your skin and you want to know if you're able to get it in a formulation, you can just enter the ingredient in the ingredient library and it will pop up. If you're interested in trying your own personalized skincare system, use my code Stephanie for 15% off a Yours Day and Night personalized skincare set.
Okay, the first expectation I noticed when I started making content as a Black person on YouTube was that there was an expectation of the content, meaning I needed to be speaking about issues, or it was looked upon me more positively if I was speaking about issues that affected Black people, Black women specifically. I know one of my video that I did have that went viral, that a lot of people saw, it was because a lot of Black women saw that video and saw their own experiences within it. And while I was grateful for that identification, there also began to be people sending me information or emailing me ideas for other things I could talk about that specifically affected, the Black population. And what I said to myself was, I feel like people are looking for a mouthpiece. And sometimes it's hard to get up and say and talk about certain things. And so when people see that you're brave enough to share your story, then they want you to share some of their story and some of their reality, even if it's not authentic for you to be talking about this. I've had people send me DMs, news articles, they're like, hey, speak on this. But it's not necessarily my bag. But because I am Black and I am on YouTube, there's this expectation of, okay, well, you should talk about this too. Which, not always. So I think that's one of the things I had to learn was just because now that, people are seeing you and with some things they can identify with, you're excited about that. It doesn't mean you have to stretch yourself to talk about every issue that might affect your community, every issue that might affect women who look like you, that might affect people with your same skin tone. You don't have to do it because chances are good there's somebody out there already doing it. And in fact, I had somebody message me and they said, hey, how come Black female creators aren't talking about this? And so I said, oh, well, we don't all talk about the same things. And then maybe like a week later, someone made a video about it. And I actually sent it to that person. I said, oh, well, hey, here you go. Somebody is doing it. So yeah, there's definitely that expectation of content there that I noticed. And it made me also be more responsible, right, with some of the things that I wanted to talk about and some of the things I wanted to say. If I felt that I could really speak from a place of authenticity and it could do some good, and my message would have more validity because of my skin color and because of what I look like, then I definitely wanted to speak on it. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to want to speak on every issue, and I think that that's fair, because you can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, and also any content company or creator or coach or whatever will tell you the key to being successful in content creation is to kind of have a niche and to talk about a specific thing. And I think if I was to be honest, I think my niche is like, obviously I talk about issues of single women. I talk about people over the age of 30, those realities. I have some content coming up where I talk about people, just things that deal with my generation. So I would say social commentary. And I would say that because I am a Black woman, I do also put in, social commentary and things that have to deal with Black people. But I'm not obviously going to be able to cover everything because everything's not my niche. Oh, I also want to say this is true of when I want to talk about media things. So when I started off, I talked about the Black Bachelor. I talked about there was I don't know if he still makes content. We don't hear from him as expected. His name was Derek Jackson. He was very big and very big voice in Black media. I talked about Saweetie and Quavo. And I've talked about Simone Biles, and I've talked about Lizzo, and I've talked about, I try and talk about, obviously, like people of color and issues or women of color, people of color, couples of color, and issues that affect us. But when I venture away from that, there is sometimes a bit of a pushback. I know when I talked about John Mulaney and Olivia Munn, which, by the way, they make me look like such an idiot. Their little relationship. So I'm officially, boop, boop, my mic is off when it comes to them. I don't know. But that's what I was covering in my video about parasocial relationships. You just never know what these people are actually doing. So yeah, my mic is off with them. But when I talked about them, there was a comment that I got, or I got several comments like, girl, why are you talking about these white people? And one person even said, I want someone like her with her personality talking about me, but I want them to be only focused on Black couples, Black love, Black issues. That's all I want to hear about. And I actually gave them somebody to go and watch. I was like, hey, go watch this person. I think they do that. But I don't necessarily think that's fair, but I do understand where it comes from. Like I said, people see that you'll get up and talk. And so they're like, hey, talk about this. And I always want to be a channel or a content creator that talks about things that feel authentic to me. Because if it doesn't feel authentic to me or like my general message or what I'm trying to get across, then I don't feel I'm the right person to speak on it. But yes, there is definitely, as a Black YouTuber, there's that expectation of content. Make it so that it's relevant to us in our community. And I do sometimes feel like I'll let someone down when I'm talking about just something else. Because they're looking for that, and I can't always provide it. But yeah, I have noticed there's an expectation of content. The next expectation that I have noticed is there's an expectation of representation. So this is similar to the last one, but only in the fact that people will see what I'm talking about and immediately say, oh, you know what? She's saying that because she is a darker skinned Black woman. So again, my video that went viral that a lot of people saw way back in the beginning of my YouTube journey, I was so surprised that some of the feedback I got, people were like, oh, this is just another dark skinned woman complaining. What? Because I had seen this topic covered in places that were multiracial and places that were multigendered. You know what I mean? I had seen it just talked about across a wide variety of people and places and experiences. And to me, it was like, oh, this is what people are talking about, period. But because, and we tend to do this, and this happens with Black people a lot, where something that one person does, it represents us all. It affects us all. And I think that's because when you're talking about marginalized peoples, which Black people are, our voices generally marginalized in mainstream media, we don't have the bodies to spare. So it's just like, when you go out there, you're kind of speaking on behalf of all of us. And so, yeah, there's that expectation of representation there where you're when what you're saying is representing in some way all of our realities. And that's just not true. And I've tried to reinstate that a couple times in some of the videos that I've made, like, hey, this is not, the truth for everyone. This was my truth. This was my story. But I'm never going to be able to shake that expectation of representation. And you know what? There is some truth to it. There is some similarity across the board, but we gotta make space for nuance when, Black people are telling their stories, when Black men are telling their stories, when Black women are telling their stories. We have to make space for nuance because just everybody's reality is not the same. I saw a comment on my very first date video that I did, my date story time. And someone was like, oh, if you're a Black woman and you've gone through this. And I was just like, man, I've seen so many TikToks where people are all colors, of all race, are they're talking about going on bad dates. They're talking about situations. I watched one TikTok and she didn't let you download it, so I'm just gonna tell you guys the story. Basically, this girl said she went on a date with a man who brought her back to his house. They met up for a picnic, and he was like, let's go back to my house. And he described to her, once they got there, he was like, I don't eat. I just let myself cut fruit and I smell it and then I throw it away. He described a lot of other very, very strange behaviors. He made fun of her. I mean, this was a white couple that this happened to. And it was just like, she left the house in tears. And it was a horrible story. It's like there's horrible date stories that happen to everyone. But again, there's that idea of representation, like, but you're talking about it and you're a Black woman. So you're therefore talking about an experience that happens to all Black women. And, just like the expectation of content, I feel like when that happens, when people think that way, it really boxes people in. It makes them have to say, no, that never happened to me. That never, and I want to be clear. I'm not saying that all of our lives have to look the same at all. Like I said, we have to make room for nuance. But I know that expectation of representation is something that exists. We expect you to be speaking an honest account of something that we can all relate to. And there's a scientific reason for this. So I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I read a book called The Body Keeps the Score, about how you understand and make sense of trauma. And me not having any previous psychological, training before reading this book, I still know I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any neurology training. I'm just a lay person reading this book. I came across this concept of interpersonal biology, or the way that our brains use mirroring to help us understand our world. Basically, what the book says is that we have mirror neurons in our brains, and they are responsible for things like empathy, imitation, synchrony, and the development of language. And that people experience trauma when they are not mirrored, when they're around someone whose brain is not perceiving reality the same way as theirs is. Also, the mirror neurons are a big reason why people tend to respond so aggressively when they encounter emotions or a situation that's not positive in their minds, right? So if it's something that makes them angry or something that makes them sad, they tend to react really aggressively, because those mirror neurons make us really, really sensitive to other people's vulnerability. And they can cause us to basically experience what that other person is experiencing, even if we don't want to. When I read that, I was like, oh, that's why sometimes people just won't turn a video of mine off, but instead they'll complain that I'm being so negative, and they'll send me like 4 paragraphs about negativity. Their brain is literally angry. The brain is like, why did you show me this? Anyway, it all comes down to us needing to survive and how we learn our worlds. And part of that is through mirroring. That's how we learn about who we are. When I think about the expectation of representation, that's what I think of. People look at me and they say, oh, okay, here's a person that I can possibly mirror. Here's a person that can possibly help me understand, help me feel, normal, help me feel like they get it. That's literally our brains just trying to survive. So when I think about the expectation of representation, I say, well, that's what that is. Especially for marginalized people, they need to see people speaking about their issues. And sometimes even when, the issue that you're speaking about is multiracial and can affect people on large, large scales, that it's that need for the brain to look at it and say, ooh, this is like me. And that's how I'm going to perceive this situation. And so in that way, I think no matter what I post, I'm going to always get people saying, this happens to all Black women, even if it doesn't, because their brain is looking for ways to experience sameness so that it can survive. And so, I don't take it personally, but I just kind of chuckle to myself. I'm like, this could happen to anybody, any race of woman. But because I am a Black woman talking about it, immediately someone will say, she's representing all of them. When I'm not. Again, we need to allow for that nuance. Okay, so the final expectation I want to talk about is the expectation of relatability. All right, so a month ago, people were on social media and they were talking very openly about the fact that they didn't feel like there was credible content on YouTube anymore coming from Black female creators. And these are young Black women that were talking about this. And I'm not going to show her TikTok because I do want you guys to go and watch her videos. But here it is. She spoke about how young Black women are finding their favorite Black creators no longer relatable, and it's making them sad because they feel like they are losing out on friends that they've had almost for a decade now. And also it's making them lose interest in the platform as a whole. They're falling out of love with YouTube. They no longer want to use it. They don't want to be on it because they don't find people on there that they can relate to. So you see what I just said about mirroring, right? It's so important for our brains to survive. We need to be like, okay, who out there can understand my version of the same? Right? And what these young women are saying is the people that they used to look at and they used to be able to relate to in any way, they can no longer do that. And so what this woman was saying is we as content receivers need to allow for people to grow and to change. And our attitudes when it comes to who we can't relate to anymore really reflect more about our changing values and beliefs than it does about the creators we say we can't relate to, if that makes sense. And a lot of people were saying, oh, I just don't relate anymore to somebody who maybe only posts luxury content, to somebody who only talks about their houses and their cars and this and that. I can't relate to that. And some people said, well, that's because, our generation is more eyes wide open to things like classism and capitalism and, the wage gap. Like we understand, like, are you really using your money the best way? Is this, so we've got different attitudes with money. Some people have said their favorite creators, they feel like their characters have changed. And I thought about this and I was like, I wonder if the weight would be on the creators to remain relatable if they weren't Black women. And one of the things that I thought about was, is it hard for Black women to relate because we are not used to seeing ourselves, or so many of us aren't experiencing that luxury? Like we're not used to it. Is that what it is? And these were comments that also happened in the comment section. If you check out her TikTok, you'll see them. And I thought about myself and whether or not I'm affected in that way. And I think my little brain never saw them as a representation of my same. I never saw these people that, people were naming in the comments. I never saw them as people I related to at all. The first thing was they were on YouTube. And I used to think YouTube was basically like going down to Paramount Studios and walking onto a soundstage. Like I thought it was so fancy. You had to do all this stuff to have a YouTube. Now, I think with the normalization of and again, I don't know what to call it, but we're in this time now where you can just pick up your phone and you're broadcasting yourself everywhere. It's just so normalized now that I was finally like, oh, I guess it's not that big of a deal after all. But that difference for me was enough. And so when I think about the YouTubers that these people were naming, I never felt that they were like me.
So in an act of synchronicity here, one of the YouTubers that was consistently referenced in that viral kind of TikTok thread has actually made a rebuttal video. So I'll link it below. But just me personally, I knew that they would be talking about this YouTuber. And it's Jackie Aina, just because she's already spoken about it herself. So I'll go ahead and just say, but she's an example for me of somebody that I never was like, oh, we're the same. Again, she was on YouTube and I thought that was akin to having your own show on a major network, whenever this technology and stuff first came out. Also, she knew how to do her makeup, which was not me at all. So I always kind of looked at her as being, she's always different. So I wasn't like, oh, we are relatable. And when I saw her growing and making money, to me, it was just an example of a way that a Black woman can, or a way that a woman can make money and grow on this platform. So I wasn't at all like, oh no, I can't relate to her anymore. I never did. She was never somebody that I thought was like me, but I can understand people feeling that way, even if it's something that I've never felt. So I do encourage you to go, if that is something that you were interested in, definitely go watch her video if you haven't already. And that she's definitely what was being talked about in that TikTok thread, one of the people they were talking about. So I think it's interesting that, to hear her opinion of it and perception of it as someone who was being accused of being unrelatable.
At all. I went to them either for tips or to watch their journeys. And some of the people that were being talked about, I was like, I'm happy to see her level up. I love it. I love to see it. Like, I want to go on those journeys with them. I'm taking notes. How can what's it going to look like if and when I get there? And speaking of that, I thought about myself. One of the reasons why people sometimes people reach out to me is they'll be like, oh, I feel like I can relate to you. And sometimes that makes me sad because I'm like, oh, girl, you going through it like I'm going through it? Damn, uh-oh. But sometimes it makes me, it makes me happy to know that I'm filling that space. But then I think I'm like, what happens if my life changes? Like, what happens if I get into a healthy relationship? Okay, and what happens if I, really do start making some money? What happens? And I thought about how I would do that, like how I would show that. Would people see me living a life of luxury? Would I do a day in my life, vlog? Ooh, what was that voice I did? Would I do a day in my life vlog where I'm like in my Tesla or whatever car, happens at that time? And I'm around my house, which that was another complaint people had. Everybody has the same house. Like, it's just, there were a lot of complaints. I suggest you watch the video and go down the thread because people made some points. But would they, would I take people into my home? And I thought about it and I said, I think it would be different for me because I started this journey so late in life. I'm not a young college kid who everybody sees, the world being handed to. Also, I've done work in the public sector, and I did that work because I had a heart for it, for like being, in that servant position, because being a public servant, being a teacher is very much being a public servant. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to serve those communities. And so I was like, man, if I ever became affluent, I've always said, obviously I would take care of myself. And by that, I mean, like, I would set up, my retirement, and like, I, put a rainy day fund away. Like, I would make sure I was good. And then I know you're probably thinking she wouldn't take care of her parents. So my parents, were very successful baby boomers, and they are horrified that I am this poor and this old. So they're good. But and then after that, I'd be writing checks to after school programs. I'd be making sure Teacher Appreciation Week, I'd be like, making it rain. I'd make sure they had whatever. I would be putting my money into, how can I go, like, the free breakfast programs are usually so bad at schools. A lot of my work would go into social programs. A lot of my money would go into social programs. I don't think I would ever be that person, and you guys hold me to it. I would not be that person that was like, oh, and then we bought this mansion, and then this mansion, and then this like, it wouldn't just be for show or for me. I would definitely be like, okay, now it's time to give up. But that's my attitude about money in general. And also when it comes to like luxury things, I'm so hard on everything that I don't really like to have super nice stuff. I have this, like, I got this little Coach bag a couple weeks ago. I went out one night, broke a makeup thing and all over the place. I'm very hard on things, very clumsy. So as long as I felt safe, as long as I felt like my surroundings were beautiful and were nice and, again, safe, and as long as I felt clean, as long as I felt like I could do things I really wanted to do, my version of affluence would just look so different. So long story short, if I ever had a whole bunch of money, people probably would never know. They probably would never know. But there is that expectation, I think, of relatability. And I think that comes with really all content creators, no matter what color of your skin is. But I think, and I will say this, and I do believe this is true, that Black women pay more of a price for becoming unrelatable. And I say pay a price, but honestly, the people that they were naming, their follower counts haven't gone down. They're like, they still, and a lot of them, they've made their money, now. So it's like, oh, whatever. But I was noticing that, and I was sad for the girls too. These are people that in some ways they've grown up watching, and they no longer feel like they can watch or be a part of their journey. So because that relatability isn't there. And it was sad to see. And by the way, the young woman who made the video talking about this, she has, like, in the comment section, there's all kinds of creators that she suggests and that other people suggest. So if you've been having that issue watching YouTube and you're just like, I don't really relate to anyone, they're right there. They are there for you. They are out there. Their voices are out there. It's just a matter of the algorithm letting you find them. All right, so these were just some of my thoughts about the expectations of being a Black YouTuber. These are just things that I've noticed, and some of them I will be able to fill, and some of them I won't. And so I think my experience on YouTube will reflect that. Like when I talk about movies and TV, it'll be stuff that feels authentic to me. So I probably won't talk about, everything that the audience may want me to talk about, but the only expectation I think I would want anybody to have from my channel is she's always going to be authentic to her story and to herself. And because I am a Black woman, I will be telling Black stories. That's all there is to it. I'm going to list below some accounts that I think that were mentioned in that TikTok creator's video in her comment section. I'm going to list them below. And I want, if you've been looking for people that you can relate to, if you happen to be a young Black woman and you've been looking for people that you can relate to on YouTube, they're there. I'm also going to list some accounts that I like, that some more Black voices that I think need to be amplified, because I think the more diverse our voices are, the more stories we're telling. Those expectations that we have for us, the only expectation will be the best you can. Do the best you can. And I think that will encourage more and more people to want to tell their stories and get themselves out there, which is really the point, right? Thanks for watching.